And welcome to another episode of Next Level Real Talk podcast here with Sheldon and David and our special guest Mark. Mark, how you doing, brother?
Outstanding. How are you guys?
Good. Mark hails to us from Chapin, South Carolina, right on the
The
other
big
side,
city of
the big
Chapin, South
city.
Wow.
Carolina, the
Yeah.
metropolis.
How's the weather out there? Is it all hot and humid?
Extremely hot, extremely hot,
Yeah.
but very,
Oh, that's
very
right. The heat
humid.
wave's going through.
So
Yeah, you
that's
guys got some crazy weather going. So Mark and I met through work and connected right away. Kind of wild. We just kept having these things, and I wasn't there for very long, right? And it just kept
no,
like,
very
hey,
short.
you know,
Short. I
hey,
think it was a week.
it was just a week, and
Just a
and
week.
and it was kind of funny. We were just like, oh, hey, yeah, me too. Hey, me too. Hey, me too.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It
It
was
really
weird.
was.
It was kind of wild. So it didn't take long, and we were just like, holy shit, let's stay in touch, kind of thing. Um, but part of that whole story was, a little bit of our journeys seemed to have tracked a little bit similar paths. So just wanted to invite you on to share your story, Mark. I don't know if you wanted to just jump on in, if you
Yeah,
want to tell a
yeah.
little
I
bit about.
mean,
Introduce yourself and talk about yourself a little bit.
yeah. Mark Myers, like Sheldon said, live in Chapin, South Carolina, right in the middle of the state. It's a beautiful place to live, but I floated from South Carolina to Virginia in the course of the past probably 30 years or so. I was married and a business owner in Virginia for 15, and then I moved back here in 2018. And um, in the throes of all that, that whole timeline was we having kids, kind of growing up, being an adult. I lost my wife of 15 years to suicide in
Mm-hmm.
2018, which was a massive bump in the road, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So there was a lot of things that kind of jostled me back and forth, but always happy to be on the East Coast. And I'd venture to say, if I existed on the West Coast, my life trajectory would be vastly different and probably worse. I would say. I don't know. And that's not a dig on the West Coast. I
Yeah,
just can't imagine dealing with the things that I dealt with over the course of the past 20 years without friends and family that I know and love here on the East Coast. But
It's
I
different
was very,
lifestyle and different. I mean, it's different lifestyle, different things, different areas that you're not used to. That's why it'd
yeah,
be a hard thing
exactly.
to let
and
go.
we need our tribe, right? We need our tribe, our
Mm-hmm.
friends
We
and our
do.
family. I mean,
And listen, I've got family and friends on the West Coast. I was military, and so everybody everywhere. But I just can't imagine going through what life is thrown in front of me and then living on the West Coast, because it's kind of a
did,
different walk of life.
Yep.
can I ask you, was your wife's suicide a shock, or was she struggling with depression,
She
or is that
was. So we were both. She was an addict,
Mm-hmm.
in the throes of addiction.
okay?
Uh, our marriage had kind of bottomed out, and we had been separated for a few weeks, and we had a 4-year-old son at the time. I was in attempting to get sober, and
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
the depression and all the other things that come with that stuff. But to answer your question directly, Sean, yeah, she wrestled with depression and things like that
Yeah, yeah,
for
Mm-hmm.
many years. She had
Wow.
a pretty severe eating disorder, and
yeah.
so yeah, she had a rough go of things. It did come as a big shock because I was a business owner on 4 automotive repair shops up there. They were very successful, and I was busy and go go go. And we had a 4-year-old at the time, and she was a um, gifted resource specialist for the elementary school for the little town that we lived in.
Oh wow.
So her career, she had a doctorate in education. So she was working and then trying to manage everything that was going on, but it did come to be quite a shock, uh,
Yeah.
once it happened. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she she was somebody that I've never met anybody like her in my life. She was a very big part of my life, but just like everybody, when you throw things like addiction and depression and um, things get out of control before you even realize they are at that point. So,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, I mean, a little bit about me. Like I said, I was always the good time. I've always been in sales in one facet or another, kind of a self-starter, and with that kind of blends into always the good time party guy. I guess you could say.
Got to keep
I
the
guess
party
you could
rolling,
say.
brother.
Yeah, gotta have fun all the time. Gotta make a ton of money, and you gotta have fun all the time. Light your hair on fire and just do it.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
always
Mhm.
my mentality, especially after the military and just wanted to take over the world. But
Mhm.
addiction never really set in heavily until um, probably 12, 13 years ago when I was in a motorcycle accident. And of course, back
Mm.
then, right on the cusp of the opiate epidemic,
Yeah,
was when this happened. And it was, oh, you got hurt, go to pain management.
yeah.
And then
Oh.
the
Okay.
realization that was such um, an it's just not an adequate treatment for anybody. And they realize this far too late. You're dependent on the
Mhm.
narcotics at that point, but they shut everything down in Virginia. You had pain doctors that were going to jail for selling out the back door. You had ones that, because of the stigma that was created around opiates, just wanted to be done with the industry altogether. So they were closing down. And it got to a point to where I went to 2 or 3 different pain management clinics and they all got shut down in the course of a year. And you
Wow.
wind up with no pain management, but you have this
Mhm.
addiction. You're sick every day and you have to have it to be able to get up and go to work and function. So, I mean, eventually you turn into narcotics and things like that.
So
But
yours wasn't a, hey, I want to go do these drugs. Yours was because you were in an accident and the drugs were given to you,
well,
quote
let's
unquote.
let's not blur the lines. There were
Mhm.
plenty of party times and drugs prior to that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
That's good to know.
I had
Mhm.
no real quarrels with when the doctor said, "Here, take these pills." It's
Oh,
not
okay.
like I asked a bunch of questions or had a bunch of reservations at that point.
Okay.
You're
That's
like
good
Um,
because I didn't know that. So it's good to
you're like
know.
double my
yeah, I
dose.
mean,
No, I'm kidding.
I was always the guy with the $200 bar tab and an 8 ball blow, and we're gonna shut this place down.
Mhm.
So I guess you could call it a natural evolution once pain management got involved and handling
Okay.
opiates. And I distanced away from the drinking and the cocaine and things like that, and just became an addict using opiates, which
Mm.
evolved into heroin and fentanyl. Um, but I was a high functioning addict.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It never affected my work. It never affected my time with kids. Uh,
Mhm.
and these are the lies that, of course, you tell yourself over the years. I'm good, man. I can use this, and nobody will know, and
Yep.
everybody will be fine. The bills
Yep.
will be paid.
Yep.
And then after a few years, you look around and you can't go to work on time because you don't have your stuff, and you're too sick, and you're still blind to
Mhm.
yourself. Long story short, I don't know how I maintained the success that I did with good jobs and staying on top of the bills, but it got to a point. Believe it or not, just a little over 4 months ago, to where I was no longer maintaining life. It was,
Mm.
So when we met, you had been clean and sober, right, for a couple of
I
years,
had, yep,
right? So you had been through. How long were you basically using before that time? Was it like 8 years or 10 years or something
yeah,
like that?
it was. I had to put a lot timeline to it, probably because I got clean and stayed clean for months,
Yeah.
and I had
Yeah.
long stretches there.
Yeah.
But I was always the guy that if I fell off the wagon, I was real sure not to let anybody know because
Yeah.
I didn't want to admit that I was off the wagon because
Yeah.
everybody thought I was doing so well.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I mean,
Mhm.
I don't even think I could probably honestly sit here and tell you I was sober for a large stretch of time where there weren't any bumps along the road. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was always the guy to where uh, it just sat so bad with me
Yeah.
using,
Yeah.
but it was a cycle you couldn't get out of. So I'd
Yeah.
get sober for a short amount of time, and something would happen, and I'd use that as a crutch, and so it became a cycle. But never, but as far as the opiates go, if it had a prescription sticker on it, I didn't, I always used it.
Yeah.
So I mean, the use for that stuff was pretty consistent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
And
I
that,
kind of did a similar thing, where I always attributed it to like discipline, like being in the military and stuff. I could
Mm.
just stop for
Oh
like a
yeah.
month. I would do a good stretch, and like you were saying, in your mind, you're like, yeah, I got this. I'm good. I've been
Yeah.
fucking clean for a month. And then the boss or whatever, you get an argument at work or something that stress you out. You get
Yep.
argument with some chick and you'd be like, fuck that shit, boom. And then bam, I'd be on a run for a couple months,
It's amazing how similar addicts are because,
Yeah.
when I was in recovery not long ago and at the actual facility, you'd sit there with 12 other people and it
Same
was like the
story.
same story, just a different person. We
Yeah.
all do the same shit,
Yes.
and,
You're in your head, you're
and
like,
it's,
I'm good. Look, I just was
oh,
offered. I'm
especially with the
freaking
military background.
yes.
That's another thing. We're always so quick to check our shit,
Yeah.
but we're also the first ones to step up to lie to ourselves too. Because man, I don't know how many times I would sit and do that self-evaluation in my head. Am I
Yeah.
good? Nah, fuck it, I'm good. I can
Yeah.
stop anytime I want.
Yeah.
I'm not a slave to this shit.
Yeah. I got a job. I'm making money. I'm fucking
Yeah,
paying. Everything's good. I got my shit together.
exactly. I'm not. I'm not the guy that's on the corner
Yeah.
homeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you're right, Sean. That's exactly how I was too. Um, so yeah, we justify it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was so bad, I could even find a means or a place for it in my life by rationalizing that
Yeah.
any day of the week,
Yeah.
I can sit here and have a conversation with you and be 100% what I thought was honest about
Yeah.
why this had place in my life.
Yeah.
Because I'm not an addict.
Yeah.
I'm just using it because, for whatever reason.
Yeah. And it's like, you go have a beer, I go do this. What the fuck difference is?
Mhm.
Oh,
Yours is
yeah.
legal, mine's not. It doesn't make a difference, but it's the same shit. So no
Yep,
big deal.
absolutely,
You know?
absolutely. So
Yeah.
addiction was something that was a constant for years and years in one
Yeah.
facet or another, but it all boiled down to the end result. It
Yeah.
never really in the back of my mind, and it never had a place in my life just from my upbringings, morals, values that were instilled in me.
Mhm.
There was always it was like living with another person in your head,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
out of that comes the effects on your self-esteem and the guilt and all these things you wrestle with
Yep.
by trying to keep it in your life. And the bad thing about that is you paint yourself in a corner because where it becomes very, very hard to ask for help
Yeah.
because you have lied so much and you don't want to let these family members down and you just but true to form, it's something that you can't get out of life without facing.
Yeah.
So once I kind of realized that and how rough things had gotten, I just kind of said, "Fuck it," the whole in front of the whole world, mom, dad, wife, everybody. Hey, I'm an addict and I need help.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, I haven't
That's
talked
good.
about this in months and months, but yeah, I mean, me and Sheldon, we met just before this crazy thing happened that led to me being sober today, and it was such a huge event in my life and such a strange thing that using anything right now feels so foreign and not me, and it has carried me through trigger events and down times and arguments with the wife, all these things that used to put me in the driver's seat heading to my guy's house.
Yep.
Um,
Mhm.
just have this unfamiliarity with it now that it's not there anymore.
Wow.
So
That's
I mean, I
huge.
know,
It's beautiful.
yeah, it's everybody says, oh, you'll go back. The real naysayers, the ones
Yeah.
that aren't in your corner, say, he was an addict for 20 years. He'll fall off the wagon again. Hell, I even said that the many times that I've gotten sober over the years. But with everything that fell into place this go around, it just feels so foreign, and I've never felt that before. I've
That's
never
beautiful,
felt.
dude. So what exactly happened?
Yeah. So, me and the wife were struggling with our relationship, and a lot of 90% of that was due to the addiction and the lying and things like that. Life had just gotten so chaotic, and I had been transferred to because I asked to be transferred to a brand new $6 million center with my job, uh, placed as a GM, given an amazing opportunity. Um,
But a lot of pressure too, right? That
a lot of
responsibility.
pressure,
There's a lot
yeah, a
of
lot of pressure,
responsibility with running a new center
yeah,
and
absolutely. And
yeah.
all this stuff just kind of boiled over one day. And it wasn't that the day before was so bad or the next day after was going to be worse. It was just so chaotic. It came out of nowhere. And I came to work, sat down in my office, and just something in my head was just off. Um, and I had been using, but nothing was making me physically feel better. I just kept getting sicker and sicker. And this was
Mhm.
probably day 2 of me just not being able to get centered like drug addicts do. They
Oh
go, they
wow.
buy, they get right, they go to work and do what they have to do. Went and bought, got high, nothing got me better. So
Hmm.
physically, I was in a bad
Interesting.
spot.
So it was like the opposite. Instead
It,
of
it was,
using making you
yeah, and it
right,
wasn't.
using was making you wrong, off.
It very off, and
Interesting. That's wild.
yeah,
That's in itself is weird,
and
right?
guys, Sheldon, we haven't talked about this, and David, I love that you're here to hear this because I really haven't talked about this with anybody. But
Mhm.
this chain of events was so far beyond any control that I could attribute it to.
Yeah.
So whether you have a God or you have a belief or you have universe, whatever it is, this
Mhm.
is 100% testimony that it exists. Um,
Wow.
so I came in, it's about 07:30, sitting in my office, just feeling bad, feeling like shit. How am I going to make it through the day? Stayed in here doing emails and back and forth until about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And I was to the point where like, I got to go home. I'm so sick. I've got to figure something out. And
Wow.
this person walked by, this loud speaking person I'd never seen before in my life. Had no idea who he was. And he flies by my office. And my office is right outside the waiting room area here at the center. And
And that's weird too, because you're the GM and you usually know everybody who comes into your shop, right? Into your
absolutely,
store, and
absolutely, I
like
knew it had
like
to
a
be a
fax machine,
customer. It
right?
had, yeah, it had to be a customer, or I had some wild man
Yeah.
showing up in my shop to do something. But regardless, he was very loud. He was a big guy. And he runs past my shop door, or runs past my door. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy in here? And it completely pulled me out of all my shit and put my focus on who is this? And about 2 seconds later, this this bald head with this earth shattering pitch to his voice sticks his head in my office, goes, "The fuck's going on with you?" And I'm sitting here going, "Excuse me, can I can I help you? I mean, are you a customer? What's going on?" He's like, "No, no, no, no." He sits down in the chair in my office. He goes, "Excuse me."
Mm. It's okay.
And he said, "What's going on with you?" And I asked him. I said, "Do you need help? I mean, is there some of your vehicles?" No. What's going on with you?
Wow.
And
Mm.
excuse me, guys.
You're fine. Take a
I
minute.
swore I wouldn't do this.
Yeah, that's what I think. We both have said that on our show when we talk about ourselves. So it's a
Yeah.
good thing
So
because you feel it. So that's good.
it turns out this guy is his name's Tommy, and he's about 6'2", 350 pound, all muscle, bald, and he's a federal agent.
Oh
And
wow.
he's a recovered heroin addict. And
Mm.
when he walked past my door, he said it hit him like a bolt of lightning. He came back in
Wow.
and sat down with me. From that that minute to jump ahead 24 hours, um, Tommy. Well, I'll back up. Tommy said we sat here and something just broke. Closed my office door and unloaded on this guy to the point
Mm.
that I gave him all the narcotics I had on me. Uh, Completely was honest with him about everything. Within 30
Wow.
minutes after that conversation, had a plane ticket and a bed at a facility, and he drove me to the airport with my wife the next morning.
Wow.
Wow.
And then
It's like God put
There's an
God or the
angel.
higher power put him to
There's an
walk by you and
well,
go,
angel.
We've
right there.
talked about it a lot
Mhm.
since I got home. He was at the airport to pick me up when I got back after the 30 days.
How cool.
And like Sheldon was referencing earlier, how the parallels between his life and my life, me and Tommy are, if not as much, probably more so. Um, we were both
Wow.
ex-service. We were both light your hair on fire and have the best time you can all the time. Um, we both would, we just the same, almost the same type of person,
Blueprint.
100%.
Yeah.
He had
Mm.
just, thank God, he had been through the path that led him to sobriety 10 years ago. And
Mm.
the day that he walked past my office, he had never met me. I'd never met him. He he said he had to pee so bad his eyeballs were turning yellow, but he stopped before he went in the bathroom and came back in my office
Wow.
because something just got him. And
Wow.
we're not talking about a
Awesome.
guy that's active in NA or AA.
Yeah.
He's not very active in the sobriety world.
Yeah.
He has
Mhm.
his sobriety that he maintains in his life, and he's a federal agent. He just lives him, and this, helping others and stuff like that isn't something he does every single day. It's not on his agenda.
Yeah.
Um, but when he walked past my office, he knew something had to happen.
Mhm.
Whew.
So
What's cool is just that he noticed it. You know,
yeah,
I
Felt
mean,
it.
yeah, he knew
and
it.
as you said too, like that higher power, whatever your higher power is, that someone a higher power said, "Hey, look at that. You know
Oh
that. You've
yeah,
been there. You've seen it. Get
yeah,
back." You know, it's kind of
yeah,
cool. So
for
one,
sure.
as individuals, if you see something, you feel it, you're being told someone needs help right now. You know, at that
Yeah,
point. So it's great that
it's
Tommy was there.
undeniable because I was at a point that day to where had he not walked past my door, I'm not sure where life would have looked like a day or two
Mhm.
later. It
Yeah.
was bad.
Yeah.
So
Mm. Well, kudos to
so yeah,
Tommy. Tommy, if you're listening, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, brother. You know.
Wow.
yeah, so that led to me doing the first time in-house rehab ever, the first
Wow.
recovery ever, the first openly admitting I had a problem and receiving help. Um, just everything about it. The center that we got online and found a place that we thought was near here and got on the phone with somebody. Um, the center I wound up at was upstate Massachusetts, up above
Mm.
Boston. The center had just opened. I was the third patient in the door. It was a completely
Wow.
it was a completely different facility than most of the places you find. There were no locked doors. Uh, there were no hospital beds. They had a nurse's station, but it was basically 12 to 15 addicts living in this old, beautiful mansion outside of Boston. And the staff
Wow.
was there to help you into a sober life. And
Hmm.
had it been any other any different of a facility or staff, I probably would have come home the second day. I
Yeah.
probably would
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
But
And you're also put
that
in the
was
right spot. Wow.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I was so sick when I got there for about 6 days after. I mean, I was constant throwing up, going through detox and all this stuff, and
Hmm.
it was almost like a light switch the day that my body worked its shit out to where I could actually walk and function again was almost instant.
Mm.
And then the hard work started of the group sessions and the one-on-one counseling and doing all the
Wow.
stuff I refused to do for 20 years to get this problem out of my life. It was always self-driven. It was
Mhm.
always white knuckling it, getting
Mhm.
sober. I can
Mhm.
do this type shit. Um, so, with that all said, I come back after
And
30 days. Um, my job's waiting for me. Everybody here at my job was amazingly supportive. The company stood behind me 100% with what I
Oh
was
wow.
doing. And I mean, long story short, I have never, ever been happier.
That's awesome. There's a couple. I know there's probably so much more you tell. I got a couple questions real quick. Um, First off, so it's Tommy, right? Am I getting the name right? It's Tommy. He
Tommy,
came
yeah.
in. Yeah.
And
When he came in,
he
what's
was
that?
just here yesterday. I would have loved to have him on the show, and I talked to him about it. But he's
Mm.
on a detail in DC today. But
Oh,
that is an option if we want to do that in the future. I would love for you
that'd be
guys
awesome.
to.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah,
cool. That'd be awesome.
that'd be really cool. So when he talked to you, obviously you had to go talk to your wife. So did she know what was going on with
Oh,
you, or how was that? How did that go? How did you?
well, my wife was probably the only person after my late wife passed. It was about 2 years, and I remarried this amazing woman. Her name's Chasta. She's never, and again, go back to the universe, the higher power, whatever you want to call it, put someone in my life.
Hmm.
She's never ever used a narcotic in her life outside of an operation. She's never
Hmm.
smoked pot. She's never, well, her nickname
Right.
is Nancy Reagan. So if that tells you anything. And
Yeah.
I used to pick on her about it, but if if Shasta wasn't who she was, I wouldn't be
Mhm.
where I am. That made it very easy for me to you know just come out with my bullshit. I had a wife
Mhm.
that already knew, that I was just lying to myself, and she was just kind of on standby for me to hit this point.
Mhm.
So when I called her and told her, and I was still sitting here with Tommy, she was she just jumped into action. She handled
Wow,
all logistical stuff, and 24 hours later, I was on a plane. Um, and we've never been better.
that's
But
awesome.
we were very, very
Yeah.
close to being over. So it's I'm very, very fortunate.
Another angel
Good.
on
I
standby. she
Yeah,
Yeah,
was
right.
she was an
that's
angel
what
on
my
standby, just waiting for you to.
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
So the next question, I'm leading to a point here because you're going right into it already. Um, it's kind of funny how you said, you're throwing up, getting all that detoxing. Then you said, then the hard part started. Everybody think that's the hard part. You're throwing up, having all those problems. You're
Oh
like,
yeah,
no, I wish I was doing that more than because you went to group sessions and individual sessions
yeah.
because that's when you had to open up
Oh,
and talk about
that's when you
everything.
have to deal with the shit that you're putting band-aids on with those narcotics.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So
Keeping
was
it.
it hard to get in there and start talking about it?
Oh, horrifically. It was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Hmm. And
Um,
how'd you feel once you started talking?
oh, you feel like $1 million. I mean, yeah, it's
Hmm.
hard to even articulate because it's a whole nother world or a realm of the world that we're in opens up to you, and you
Hmm.
have that moment where you go, "Fuck, I wasted 20 years." Here I thought I was
Hmm.
here I thought I was having fun, partying, and staying high,
Yeah,
but I pissed away 20 years.
yeah.
Really,
Hmm.
I mean, that's the first thing that pops into your mind when you get on the other side of dealing with the demons that you've got in there in a healthy facet, and you trust people to care for you. Which, I mean, I've never been a very trusting guy when it comes to stuff like that. I'm not going to
Yeah.
put those things in someone else's hand and trust them to manage them
Right.
correctly.
Right.
But in
Hmm.
this instance, everything lined up perfectly to where I was afforded 30 days in a very caring, safe environment um, with people that were absolutely amazing, with other addicts that had the exact same goal as I. So that's the greatest thing about sobriety in the world of it. Everybody checks your shit. You really
Hmm.
are brothers in arms, um, down to you can hear it in somebody's voice. Like if Sheldon were to call me on a Friday and I can hear that frustration in his voice, the concern's there enough and the camaraderie's there enough to be okay saying, "Are you okay? You know,
Hmm.
do you need to talk about something?" You know,
Like
and
Tommy did with you, the real "Are you okay?" Not just the
Hmm.
oh
bullshit "Are you okay?"
yeah,
Yeah.
Superficial, "Hey, what's up?"
yeah, absolutely,
You know what I
and
mean?
And that's the because what I was leading to, because as you said ago, he said that. Oh my gosh, he's right into what we've talked. Sheldon and I've talked about before is that it's hard to go talk to somebody when you have an issue. It's hard because you're like, one,
yeah,
I'm having this problem. You're not. No one else has this problem. Well, yeah, a lot of people do.
yeah,
It's it's the hardest part. The first step is opening up and stepping out and finding
yeah.
somebody to talk to, and that's what you were
Well,
talking about. So,
yeah, being a male in the society we live in
mhm,
nowadays, we're
Mhm.
always the first to be discounted. We're
Yep.
always
yep,
the first asked to do something. We are,
hmm,
and I'm guilty of this. I'm the last one to ask for help. I'm the
Yep.
last one to admit I don't know how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And with addiction, that just leads to bad stuff,
Yeah.
keeping it to yourself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we do have a very, very big task ahead of us with things like you guys are doing with the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
making it okay for dads and GMs and
Yeah.
guys that just don't ask for help because 90% of life they got.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't something you can have.
Yeah.
And what I liked is once you opened up to your wife, to your work, to friends, it all started to come together because you had a wolf pack said, "No, we've been here for you. We're
Oh
glad."
yeah,
It sucks that you went through this, but we're here for you. It's not like you think, okay, I'm going to tell my friends and tell my work I'm fired. My friends are going to hate me. That's what our brain sometimes
oh yeah,
wants to think.
absolutely. And
But
meanwhile, everybody's standing around going, "We've known, dude.
yeah,
We've known."
and it's so cool how much. I mean, I want to start crying about work. Work said, okay, yeah, go take care of it. We got your back.
Yeah,
It's like that's so wonderful, and that's a testimony to people saying, hey, yours is a very phenomenal story that they took it and did that. Sometimes you may get fired, but know that might be a good thing. But be willing to open up and find that wolf pack because that wolf pack's there. You just got to let it go. That is the hardest part.
absolutely.
So,
And it's
Yep.
funny. It's like it's almost. I've joked about this a few times. It's almost like a secret club. It's almost like the Skull and Bones, because
mhm,
after I got sober and I came out of there kind of like, do I tell people? I don't want to make people feel awkward. I shoot pool. I'm on a couple of pool leagues, and the first week that I was back and went to pool league, 4 out of 7 guys on my 9-ball team were sober. So it's like, hey,
hey.
everybody's doing it.
You're like, what took you so long?
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, David. I've got a friend of mine, Joe, that's on my 9-ball team. You guys, I mean, he's your doppelganger. I wish I could, and he's very active in the sober committee or community here in Chapin. But you guys are spitting image of each other.
No shit, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
We should have them
my
on the
God.
show. Hey.
It'd be weird. Yeah. It'd be funny, but he looks just like Joe.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, so
That's funny.
can I I mean, obviously this is huge, but I did want to ask you if you're willing to share a little bit about what it was that you uncovered in the therapy that was the root cause of the discomfort that you were burying with your addiction.
Yeah.
What was that?
So we're still working on a lot of that.
Okay.
So there was some childhood trauma there
Okay.
that from probably age range of 7 to 10. There was some childhood trauma, some stuff that happened back then that I had completely detached from.
Yeah.
That we've come across. But
Can I ask what kind of trauma are you talking about?
I was molested by a gentleman that lived in my best friend's neighborhood. So back then we were always just in the neighborhood running around.
Yep.
And that it's funny you bring that up because that's kind of opened up some other things that we're looking into as far as other kids that were in that neighborhood and grew up with me at that time that this guy may have gotten a hold of as well.
Wow.
So that alone has led into some pretty hard stuff. And
So you're still working with somebody on this stuff?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm in counseling and therapy every week, but
Beautiful.
imagine you not talking to Dave for 30, 35 years and then having to call him up and say, hey, you remember that weirdo that lived in the cul-de-sac?
Yeah.
Did he happen to molest you?
Yeah.
What a conversation. Like, what
Oh,
is this conversation?
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that we're having to do now because there were so many of us and it was such a safe place. But I just have this gut feeling. And 2 of the guys that I have contacted, the one that I contacted, we found out his brother was molested by him.
wow.
And then the other guy, his sister she wasn't molested by him, but she had some stuff, and both of those had been reported, but reported, of course, 10, 12 years later. And we had no idea.
Yeah.
And the thing is, again, that's that I can't even fathom you picking up the phone call and saying, me going, "Hey, Sheldon, remember the dude next door that?
Yeah,
How do you talk to someone going? Wait, I'm the one that got molested. I'm the weird one.
yeah,
We tend to put that in and not. I don't want to tell Sheldon about that because that's going to make me sound
Well,
weird.
that's
yeah,
But
absolutely.
I love how you're opening up,
but
going, "Hey, guys, we got to talk about this."
it's
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
shame. Shame is
Yeah,
a
that's the word. That's the word. Yeah.
shame
it is
is this
shame. It is shame.
inner
You feel very shameful that it happened to you, but and it takes years for
yeah.
that for you to
Wow.
grow as a person to
Yep.
realize that that's your first
Awesome.
instinct is to feel shame and not talk about it.
Yep.
But then
Yeah.
when you, it's funny for me, I can spend 47 years not talking about it, but the second I think about one of my childhood friends being molested, I turn into a bear. I'm like, I need to
Yeah.
call and find out if it happened
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
gonna get this fucker, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
uh, and if
Oh,
I got to talk about my shit to make that happen, okay, let's go. You
That's a
know.
yeah.
beautiful thing, dude. That's a beautiful
Yeah.
thing. That's
Wow.
being in service, right? That's I think one of those key things, right? You know,
And if
Yeah.
nothing
like
else, it's going to help them get
yeah.
help.
Sometimes we can't help
Yeah.
ourselves, but we can help others.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And listen, I mean, maybe the guy will say, "Dude, that shit never happened to me. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's his bag to carry, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
But
Yep.
maybe it did, and maybe he needs to talk about it.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It gets the ball rolling at least.
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
does
So,
absolutely.
That so
wow.
you are ongoing weekly with counseling and
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like that to continue to
yeah.
process because it is not something that as powerful as your experience was it's my belief it's our belief I think Dave right that you can have that one transformative catalyst but this is still a journey life is a journey
Yep.
that healing
Absolutely.
process is a journey that unpacking process is a journey that doesn't end right it gets easier over time right
Yep.
it gets
Yep.
lighter over time some of the baggage becomes less intense as
Mhm.
the initial shit was, but it doesn't mean it stops, right? It's a
No.
Yep.
process, right?
It just
So
you're able to process it and deal with it in different, better ways.
yeah,
Well,
Hopefully, it's
it's just like if you decide to become a pilot, you've got to go to school to learn how to fly a plane.
yeah,
You know,
mhm.
you have to be equipped with the tools to deal with
yeah.
this shit. And
And the
we're
more hours you have, the better you get at it, right? But you're
yeah,
still
exactly,
learning. Every flight, you learn something new, maybe, right? And
Mhm.
oh, the weather
Yep.
was different on this landing, and so
absolutely.
you're constantly learning. And it's the same thing with this process. So I'm glad to hear that you are continuing that process.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
this is going to be a long journey, but a
yeah,
good one,
Yeah.
yeah,
to
but a
say the
beautiful one,
least.
right? Seriously.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
And you don't realize how happy you could be, right? You were saying you're happier than you ever have been because
Yeah,
you don't
oh,
realize.
absolutely. You have no idea. You just don't know you can be. You
Yeah,
know, you think you're happy when you're using.
yeah,
You're like, oh,
Mhm.
my happiness is
yeah,
spending this money to get high.
yeah,
And then thank God the universe stepped in and helped me to where I am
yeah.
because the happiness that I experience on a daily basis now is so rich, so more rich and good than any substance could ever provide.
That's
Mhm.
beautiful. That is
Wow.
beautiful. And you were saying, so you've had trigger incidences that have come up where you
Hmm.
didn't even feel that need or that urge or the pull. It's like
Yeah,
clean. Is that
yeah,
true?
oh, absolutely. It's triggers seem to manifest when stress and frustration
Mhm.
are triggered. When you have
Mhm.
those two
Yep.
things, and it's always work related or wife related or
Yeah.
kid related. It's always something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but until I actually took the steps to become to start the process of recovery,
Mhm.
um, I guess I was just sold on the fact it's easy to go buy a bag and alleviate that. And now the
Mhm.
the investment that I've made in myself when those triggers happen, when all those ingredients are in the pot, and I would
Mhm.
normally head to my guy's house.
Mhm.
Now it's there's so many other things that come on the radar before ever even thinking about that.
That's
Mm.
beautiful.
That's good.
There's so many better things that I've
Uh-huh.
learned.
Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
it's
You notice them. You've learned to
oh yeah.
notice them and go, okay, boom,
When
boom. I'm
when
going to
you
pull it
say
in.
that, are there tools for dealing with the stress that you've learned? Is that what you mean
Oh,
by better
well, it's
things
funny
or
you bring it up, Sheldon. I had this really amazing trainer when I opened the center I say that jokingly, but Sheldon came into my life and taught me some of the greatest things as far as meditation
Oh,
and
cool.
getting centered, and it not having to be a big ordeal, just a quick 2, 3 minutes that I still do a couple times a week to this day.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
So yeah, I mean, it's just about being open to receive those tools as they fall in front of you, and then
Yeah.
using them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
That's beautiful. So that's awesome. So that helps. Cool. Wow. What a
It's a
freaking,
great story.
yeah,
and
I'm
and you
I'm
guys, that's
excited.
a
I'm excited where you were, where you are. I mean, it's like, it's like, it's not like sorry where you were. It's like, no, that was your life. That's, hey, that's
yeah,
where you were. That's what you
and,
experienced. It's
and
like,
I'm
yeah,
a
it's not,
I'm also a big believer that in the community, in the 12-step community, in the recovery community, that there's I feel like, have you ever heard of that thing about upper limiting? Upper limiting meaning you can only get so high, you can only go so far in
right,
life. Like, oh, I can
right.
only make X amount of money, or I only can be this
Mhm.
successful. There's an upper limit. And a lot of us have upper limits in what we think is possible in the world, right? And I think and I hate to say this because the recovery community is huge and beautiful, but sometimes the recovery community can upper limit, and they say, oh, you're an addict forever and you will never be healed.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And I honestly don't believe that. I
I'm not
believe,
I was told, and I hear even at the recovery center,
mm,
and you hear once an addict, always an addict.
yeah,
You're
Mhm.
always going to fight this battle. I disagree.
I
I mean, I
am
feel
with
like
you on
I'm
that.
healing every day.
Yep.
I can't, and I'm so excited to get to this point, 2, 3 years down the road,
Hmm.
and see what my reaction is when
Hmm.
the really, really shitty things in life happen,
Hmm.
losing a loved one,
Yep.
or
Yep.
Mhm.
an illness. Those are the real checks,
Yep.
Mhm.
But I can't resolve to call myself an addict for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
because in 3 to 5 years, if I lose my mother or brother or wife and I don't run off to use the substance,
Yep.
I don't think
Yeah.
I'm not addicted to it.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
with
I've
you. I
recovered.
That's what I mean about
Mhm.
the upper limit. I do believe it's possible. I think, uh, you know, you can call it through God,
Yeah.
through divine power, whatever, the universe, that all things are possible, that it is possible to be
So,
completely released
Yeah,
of
so,
that.
absolutely. And my friend
Mhm.
Joe, that looks you, David, looks so similar. He put it very well. If you're diagnosed with cancer, you may go through treatment and recover from that, but you're always gonna eat right. You're gonna be more focused on living a healthier lifestyle,
Mhm.
and those are the
Mhm.
attributes we gain from being an addict.
Mhm.
But I can't call myself an addict for the rest of my
Yeah.
life because
Yeah.
I've
Mm.
made bad
Yeah. You
decisions in
don't
my
need to. Yeah.
20s.
Yeah.
Because you're not
100%.
an addict right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
I
not.
mean,
You
I'm
were.
not.
You
Yeah,
were.
yeah,
You
and
know.
I agree with you,
So,
Sheldon. I don't like thinking that this is a lifelong
Yeah.
problem.
It's an interesting. I think I've shared this. I know I've shared this story before on a podcast, but it's kind of relevant. It's like Jacqueline, my wife. Years ago, we were visiting my mom in San Francisco. She was when she was still alive. She lived in the senior facility, and it was right in the
mhm.
Mission District of San Francisco, 16th and Mission. It was right in the smack dab
Right
in the
there.
freaking hood,
Yeah.
you know. And there's
It was the hood. When I went visit, like, man, where the heck? I'm in the
there were
hood.
a crack dealer directly across the street that I had bought from, directly across the street, right? And
Convenience.
I had partied in every freaking hotel. I had partied up and down. I mean, you know, there are triggers, if you want to call them that, at
Mhm.
every block in fucking San Francisco. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? North
yeah.
Beach, everywhere. South of Market, everywhere, right? And she didn't know that because she's kind of like your wife, where she's like, never done, clean as can be, and all,
God
so
bless you.
God bless her, polar opposite. And
Yeah.
so one day we're going to visit my mom, and we park outside the center, and I forget what she just said. Hey, do you ever think about that stuff when you're here? Does it ever come up? And I'm like, I bought crack right 10 feet over there. You know what I mean? That's where I used to buy my pipes. The head
Yeah.
shop I used
Mhm.
to buy my freaking
Yeah.
equipment from was like literally right next door to my mom's senior place. And I'm like, I got triggers every freaking where here you
Everywhere.
could possibly
Mhm.
imagine.
That's
There are
right.
triggers all over. And she goes, well, she's freaking out. And I said, I don't pay attention to them. This is the power of meditation, by the way. You center yourself into space and all the thoughts just pass through.
Mhm.
That's
And
it.
so,
Yeah.
because you have a thought doesn't make you who you are, right? It's like that thought is just this cloud that's
It's a
passing through,
cloud
right?
going
It's
by.
just a cloud
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
by.
I
I go, I
remember
don't pay
that.
attention to them. And after a while, they went away. Like, I can go in the city right now, and they don't really trigger. It doesn't pop up anymore. But at first, they kind of did. It's like, oh
And
shit,
that's
there
what
it is.
I
Yeah.
was going to ask Mark. So, like, when, hopefully never, when your mother passes away, when you have that stressful moment that would trigger you before, is there a thought of like, okay, when this happens, I need to make sure I'm on? Do you think about like people to talk
No,
to or things to do?
well,
No.
it's funny, and people laugh when I say this. When I use the term "the gift of addiction," it sounds wrong when you first hear it, but the gift of addiction is my sobriety at this point. In my sobriety is it's just like any other muscle. You have to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be. It has to be in the forefront. It's got to be something you invest in on a daily basis with the way you choose to live your life. If
Okay.
something tragic were to cross my path right now, um, it would be. It's a contradiction and it's funny because it is. I'm much more well equipped to handle it
Yeah,
now
you have
than I
tools.
ever was prior to being sober
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
because I'm here, I'm present,
yeah.
and
Yep,
I'm
Awesome.
aware.
it's
So
beautiful.
yeah, I don't live in fear at all that something tragic is going to come down the line and I'm going
Cool.
to be all of a sudden I'm going to be actively addicted again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
Okay.
there's a teaching called the Gene Keys, and this is a guy who it's kind of like a channel teaching. He cut the other side, and these energy came through, and it's like the I Ching, but he talks about every single energy having, I forget what he calls it, but it's like the shadow, and then it becomes like it catalyzes and it transforms, and then when you get to the other side of it, it becomes a gift. So every energy has its dark aspect, and then it's in a process of transmutation or shifting from the dark to the light, and it's like in the middle. And then when it shifts to the other side, it becomes the city, which is the Hindu expression for like enlightened, whatever. The
Hmm.
city or CD, I don't even know. He's SIDDHI, I think is, but that's what he talks about. These energies have the gift, and so when you're saying that, it makes total sense, right? When you've
Yeah.
but you don't see that until you've been through it. It's like Dave when you say, "Oh, my divorce, gave me this
Hmm.
gift." Right,
Yeah.
the most
Hmm.
horrific thing that ever happened to me in my life. I got a divorce and I was devastated. But there's these beautiful gifts that
That came
came
from it.
from it.
Hmm.
But it's
Yeah.
only when you're healed that thing and you
Past it
get through
and
it,
look back and like,
then you
wow.
can see,
Yeah.
wow, there was a
Mhm.
beautiful silver lining, if you will, right? The gift
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that
Which is which is what
thing.
like what Mark was saying. He goes,
Yeah.
the blessing of addiction. Like, wait,
Yes.
how's that a
Yeah.
blessing? Because
Yeah.
this is
And it
what
sounds
got me
funny
to
to
where I need
somebody
to
who
be
doesn't
now.
understand that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And that's the thing. That plays into so many
Mhm.
aspects of life.
Totally.
If we're not focused and in that moment to learn what we can from
Yeah.
whatever situation,
Yeah.
winning the lottery, losing your mother, being in a car wreck, getting a
Yeah.
promotion, all these things that happen through the course of our lives,
Yep.
if we're actively addicted, we're dulled, we're
Yeah.
not there, we're not present,
We're
and
not
we're
Mhm.
present.
missing all
Right.
these teachings and gifts and friends and relationships that may spur from these things. So, I mean, maybe I'm still just high on being sober, but
It's a beautiful thing, man. Nothing wrong with
highly be
that.
Great way to
present
be
to
high,
like
dude. That's
not only being able to receive love, but to
Yeah.
be able to give love.
give
It's
it back. Yeah.
beautiful, dude.
It's a
That's
good
it.
Yeah.
thing.
That is
Yeah,
absolutely you honestly, when
Yeah.
you're healed and you release those layers of guilt and
Hmm.
shame, and that's
yeah,
the whole process, right? It's not even a process of sobriety, it's a process of healing, right?
yeah.
Because
You're
as
exactly
you're
right.
looking at all the baggage, and that was the root cause, right? Was, hey, there's some shame, there's this stuff around
Yeah,
this
Hmm.
trauma that happened when I was a kid, this abuse, whatever, right? And as you heal that, then the triggers are gone. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And you're
absolutely.
solid, you're good, and to me, that's that house upon rock. It's a foundation that's solid,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
it's no longer subject to the whims of what might have happened in any particular day or moment in your life anymore, because
exactly.
you're rooted and
You're
grounded.
not adrift anymore.
Yeah,
And
you're not.
the people tend to forget or just neglect the fact that the mind and the heart and the soul need as
Mhm.
much care
Yeah,
as the biceps, the
that's
pectorals, the
beautiful,
legs.
dude. 100.
You
percent
know, those
That's
things
beautiful.
take just as much work as anything else.
Yes, and we don't focus on that in our life, in our
Nope.
world, right?
At least
Especially
not enough.
yeah, and
Not
like you
enough.
were saying,
Exactly.
there's a Brene Brown. I don't know if you've ever heard of Brene Brown, but she was this woman who studied happiness, and she had a TED talk, and it blew up, got like 14 million views her first TED talk, and she became pretty famous. She's written a bunch of books, like 5, 6 books now, but
Right.
she was studying all this stuff about what makes you happy and all this, and shame, the power of shame, the power of guilt, all these certain things. And it was all focused apparently on women. And she had not studied men.
Mm.
And this dude came up to one of her book signings and he goes, "Hey, I noticed you don't study women." She goes, "Oh, I study women." He goes, "You know what? Because my wife and my daughter over there, they'd rather see me die than fall off my horse." Like, because he's like the knight in shining armor. He's their savior.
Mhm.
Has this facade that he's created for himself, that society has created for us too, and
Mhm.
his wife and his kids, right? And he
Absolutely.
goes, "And I'll tell you what, they'd rather see me fucking die than see me fall off my horse right now." And
Absolutely.
it kind of shook her a little bit to where she's like, "Whoa, there's this whole dynamic that goes on with it's making me want to cry." that we as men have that is different, right? It's not that women don't have their own challenges and things,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
as a man, getting it, to be able to get in touch with how you feel is such a thing that is not trained in us as men.
And
I
not
think the
just
younger
Mhm.
kids these days have more of that. They're more open to it,
they
right?
the youth
Yeah.
nowadays,
It's different.
they are more in touch with that. But
Yeah,
there's stigma attached to that.
for sure.
You as a
Yeah,
man coming from our
yeah.
Mhm.
generation,
Yep,
weakness
yep,
and feelings and
yep,
all those things, that equated into
yep.
something negative.
Yes.
And
What are you, a
and
fucking pussy? You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
yeah, man the fuck up.
Man the fuck up.
Personally, I can't
Exactly.
stand that term, but man the fuck up
Yep,
is I mean, how many times have you heard that in
yep,
your day to day?
yep.
I mean, and
100%.
And
it's done such an injustice to
Yep,
guys our
Mhm.
age
yep,
because we're just absolutely supposed to be 10 foot tall,
yep,
bulletproof,
yep,
and
Yeah.
never crack.
yep,
And that's
But
where
who can maintain that mental,
yeah,
weight?
yeah.
It's
Nobody.
Mhm.
yeah,
Nobody. It just doesn't happen. It's an illusion that there's anybody that can actually do it
yeah,
because,
absolutely.
and there are people that can, you know, that have coping mechanisms, whether it's cruelty towards
Yeah,
women or their kids or their
or drugs.
coworkers or their teammates. They might be a CEO of $1 billion company and they're
Yeah,
just cruel as fuck and they're mean or whatever,
yeah,
right? Their heart is not open anymore, right? They're completely shut down, and whatever way that is, it's dysfunctional. There's no
yeah,
doubt about it,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it's us. It's being able to face that, acknowledge it, right, and
yeah.
heal it, and then it's a beautiful thing, right?
It is a
Right?
beautiful thing. I just wish it was more widely accepted. But I listen, just like I said earlier, you guys doing things like this, a lot of things outside of the sober community. I used to be part of a single dads group that one of my good friends is still a part of,
Uh-huh.
that is growing leaps and bounds, and they're out there doing healthy activities and talking, and
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
so
beautiful.
it is
Having that wolf
moving.
pack. He's got a little wolf pack,
So
you
that
know.
Yeah,
energy's
exactly.
happening, right, for
Yeah.
greater awareness
Yeah,
and
so I can only hope and pray that 10, 15 years down the road, when our kids are where we
Mhm.
are, that stigma doesn't dampen the
right,
flame
Yeah.
that they should have for life.
right.
And
'Cause
so, Mark, when I was going through the divorce, some gentleman, I won't mention name, Sheldon, had me start journaling, writing
yeah,
stuff. And I'm like, why does he want me to write stuff? And I'm just writing what happened that day, what happened. And at first, it was like pages upon pages upon pages. And it slowly, got less and less and less. But at one point, he and I talked, and I need to finish it because it's been hard to type some of the stuff. And he knows that I going to take that journal and put it into a book, how to process it as a man, because
yeah,
there's no books on for men to go through
no, there's
divorce.
Divorce,
not.
how do you navigate
Yeah,
something like that?
not that
Yeah.
mine's the only way to go through it, but here's one how I dealt with it. Hey, you
But
could
that's
probably
the
deal with
thing.
it.
There's no
You know,
resources. If there's guys out there every day that struggle with this, that are not going to step outside the comfort zone and talk about it,
hmm
but you can go to the Barnes and Noble and buy a book on just about anything.
Yeah,
Find me a
hmm
book on how to deal with emotions in
yeah,
today's society for men,
yeah,
and it's just not there.
yeah,
not
So
there.
yeah,
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, because at one point I couldn't type because it was just too still raw. That onion
yeah,
was still being peeled, and so
yeah,
I've been getting back closer to it. But that's one thing, and I love that you came on and told your story because there's so many people out there that are afraid of something, or just maybe they're at a roadblock, and I hope that someone is hearing this and they're going like, "Hey, I can do this."
yeah.
Um, so I
have,
appreciate you
Because they
talking,
can.
and yeah,
yeah.
They can,
hmm
and I mean, everybody's equipped to handle something if someone is willing to give them just a little bit of encouragement and help, and let them know it's okay to be who you are.
Yep.
So
Yep.
You guys
Very
are
sad.
awesome
So-
for giving a platform to it.
Thanks.
So thank you. And go ahead.
It's a beautiful, powerful story, Mark. Thank you for sharing that. I know that somebody will hear this and
Mhm.
be, moved and inspired. That's the whole goal of this thing, right? Is to, I always want it to be more than one person, Dave.
Yeah, right.
But hey,
But if it is just one,
if
you
it's
know,
just one, it's enough, right? It's a beautiful
That's right.
thing. It's a beautiful
and I
thing.
would I'll talk to Tommy and see if we can't coordinate enough to get him on here. You
That'd
guys
be
would
awesome.
love Tommy.
That'd
That'd
be
be
great.
awesome. That'd be
Yeah.
cool.
So and Sheldon knows. Okay, so Mark, just so you know, I'm a teacher. Okay, a retired teacher now. I'm back as a librarian, and I give out homework. So I got to do my.
He can't retire. He tries, but he can't.
Homework.
He's giving us freaking homework, man.
There was one day we were talking. He goes, "You're giving homework?" I go, "Oh, I guess I am."
You've been doing it at the end of
Get rid of the
episodes.
cycle.
No. Holy shit, dude.
Maybe it's a
Hang on.
retired teachers
Let me-
group that I
I'm
need to
gonna
get
write it
into.
down.
So-
Go ahead, teach.
And so there's two actually. One is if you see somebody and you just feel it, ask.
Act.
And then there's
Act on that
and there,
feeling.
yeah, and
Act on
act.
that feeling.
There was one situation, I won't talk about it, but something happened. A lady freaked out, and I reached over, and go, "You okay?" And I looked at her, and she looked at me. I go, "Do you want to pray?" She's like, "Yeah, we prayed." So I didn't know who she was, and like Tommy didn't know who you were. So don't be afraid to open up if you feel it. Act on it. Okay.
It's beautiful.
Now the big homework. It's hard. It's going to be hard to step out from your comfort zone and talk to somebody, but open up, ask, because there are people out there that are willing to help. So don't be afraid to ask for help, even though you're in the darkest spot and you say, no one's going to help me. Just what you had as an example. You had your work, you had your wife, you had Tommy, you had the people at the facility.
Yeah.
So much there to help you. So sometimes you don't think they're there. Think, oh, my wife's going to hate me. Oh, work's going to fire me. No, they're the ones that'll step up because
Absolutely.
you're willing to try. So
Yeah.
it's going to be hard, but
Beautiful.
step up.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We have to be open to receive, right? Like you were saying, willing to
That's
receive
it.
love as well as to
Yeah.
give it now, right? You can't give what you haven't received, right? So as you
That's it.
receive more, you can give more, and it
Mhm.
becomes a cycle, right? A beautiful cycle rather than a
Yeah.
vicious cycle. It's a cycle of increasing love and increasing beauty and growth. So what a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you, Mark. Man, it's great to hear your story. Great to meet you.
David, it was great to meet you, man. This was
So-
an honor. I appreciate you guys asking me to come on.
yeah, man. It's
And anybody out there, if you have questions, concerns, or you need someone to talk to, obviously I'm not the one that's been through drug addiction ever in my life, by the grace of God, but I know many people that have, too, right here. Just reach out, ask us.
Absolutely.
Put a note in the comments,
Yeah,
share
like
with your
comments,
friends. Make comments. So if you have some situation, you got two guys right here that are willing to talk to you with
Yeah.
drug addiction.
for
So,
sure. For sure.
Thank you so much. Thank
So-
you, guys.
Thanks everybody
you.
for listening.
Yeah, you guys all have a great week. Keep a smile on.